Hi guys, Judy Haddad here with another installment of Hit by a Truck, my journey through trauma after the loss of my son, after we were hit by a truck. I'm also the owner of Orange Purple Passions, my healing LLC, and the founder and executive director of 5 Purple Oranges, my charity founded in memory of Alon. It is cold in here today, so you'll have to forgive me, but I brought my notes. So it dawned on me, a lot of this part, the second part of my journey is my journey to find my faith. And I really cannot, I've been holding off, but I truly can't talk about my journey to faith without talking about the criminal case at all. So I'm gonna just touch on that a little bit today and see how that goes. So just kind of, I don't know, I'm gonna just touch on a few things again. Maybe I'm repeating information, maybe I'm not, I'm sorry. So the crash was in 2014, and in 2016 is when I really started traveling more, mostly because I could. I just sort of thought of it as my year of saying yes, just to sort of figure out where I was supposed to be. And I found it therapeutic in that I got to spend a lot of time hanging out with people who became like my truly close friends. It's 2018, isn't it? So one of the things I talked about in the last, I believe the last episode, was I met my friend Tracy from Houston, Texas, and she is an instructor for CARE, the Center for Aromatherapy Research and Education, and we just clicked right away. And because of her, I ended up deciding to take further education in raindrop, which is one of the therapeutic services I currently offer to clients. And I just got so much out of working with her. So it wasn't just the education in the chemistry of essential oils and how things work in the body and emotional healing, all stuff that I was interested in for myself. It was just having that relationship with someone who could love me so fiercely, having only just met me. We just had we still have such an amazing bond. And, but what she does, it was another thing where I was trying to fit my square peg in a round hole. She's, I'm going to get the acronym wrong, so I'm not even going to say it, but what she does with CARE is she offers these 3-day workshops, however often she chooses to, and she makes a really nice living doing that. And because I love providing that healing for people so much, I thought, well, this is the way to go. So I took all the classes, I took all the tests, which helped me anyway because I needed my certification anyway, so I could actually work on people and get paid. And then I kept going with it, and I started doing the final exam, and I was sitting doing the final exam one day, and I was like, this isn't me. This is not what I want to do. Like, I've been through enough schooling already. Like, I love the work, but this isn't what I'm meant to do. I just knew this wasn't meant to do. So it was sort of like, oh, I'm doing this because, this is the way I can use my skills to make more money, I think is where that mindset was, where I was. And it's just, it didn't fit me. It wasn't my purpose. So, I was still sort of rudderless and faithless after going through a lot of work with Tracy, which ended up being great in a lot of ways. Like, I can look back and say, oh, you spent so much money doing this, and you bought these books, and you bought this manual and all this stuff, and you didn't really need it. But no, because the time spent studying for the final exam was great for me and my business anyway. The time spent with Tracy was always awesome. It was the type of thing where it forced me to make decisions that I was sort of falling into these things I had mentioned before, that everybody was following different gurus, and I would sign up for these workshops thinking, well, something's gonna spark, something's gonna speak to me at some point. And nothing was doing it for me, and I would buy tickets to events and then sell tickets to events. I mean, I was supposed to go, it's now December 3rd, 2018, and I was supposed to be on a plane to Vegas to do 2 different events in Vegas, which I'm sure I would have really enjoyed, but it's not where my heart is. So with Tracy, I could say, oh, well, you know, she would need to test me after I was done with my practicum, and I would say, okay, you know, let's meet up here. This will be a fun place. Then it can just be, for me, then a relaxing trip. I get to see you. I get my certification. So I was able to design a little bit more of my life by that point. End of 2016, I would say that is. So, but all this time I was still going through the court case, the criminal case. So, the crash was in August of 2014, and I kept in touch with the investigators and my lawyer throughout, you know, the months. And around February of 2015 is when I got the first inkling that we might have something to meet with the DA about. We didn't, and I don't know exactly why. I know after reading the police report that there was just more information to be gathered. And I'm so grateful for that. Rather, I don't want to rush to justice, because the rush to justice could be no justice. And that was fine, but it was so hard for me. At that point, I wasn't really sure what I was doing with my life. I had no job. There was still stuff going on with the civil case. Like, everything was up in the air. So my mom had decided that she was going to send me to Israel to hang out with my family over there. And I would have really loved that, but I haven't been to Israel in a long time, and I was gonna go back when my dad went back before he got his brain injury. And then I always wanted to go with Alon. So going without Alon just felt empty, and I felt like I wasn't prepared to take care of myself yet. So my mom sent me to Miraval in Tucson, or outside of Tucson, Arizona, and that was like exactly what I needed. I did a lot of yoga, I did a lot of meditation, I did some shamanic healing, you know, drum circles and stuff, like crazy stuff. But it was really powerful to me. Like hiking, it was the first time I went on a hike, and so I had this thing for a long time, where if it was in my car that got crushed and I still didn't have it back because it was evidence at this point, I wasn't gonna buy a new set. So my hiking boots are in my car, I didn't wanna buy a new set. My umbrella, brand new umbrella, was in the car, I didn't wanna buy a new umbrella. All these things, like I had yoga clothes in the car, I didn't wanna buy new stuff. I had this block where I didn't want anything new that was crushed in the car. It was just kind of a crazy little mindset. So I went hiking in these crappy little shoes, not good for hiking, and I was in a lot of pain, not from the shoes, just from the way my injuries are. And but I survived, and I felt good, and it was so great to be in nature, and it was so great to be in that space and to be taken care of. I didn't have to drive, I could walk everywhere. Meals were taken care of. If I wanted to eat alone, I could eat alone. If I wanted to eat with people, I could eat with people. There was no alcohol. I think you could buy alcohol, but I did not bring alcohol, and I just didn't need alcohol at that point. When I say I didn't need alcohol, I just didn't choose to partake in alcoholic beverages. But I got some cool ginger, like, juices and stuff. Like, I just loved being there, and I think going back, I really want to go back, and I think going back, would be amazing, but it's also sometimes when you have just an incredible experience, the second time around just can't compete, and so that's a hard thing to do. So while I was there, it was that type of thing where every time I wanted to go away, I would check in with the cops, like, what's going on with my case? Because I'm afraid to go away. All of a sudden the DA is gonna make up his mind to do something. I wanna be in town. So, that was a lot. Mom and I planned a lot of our lives like that. We wanted to just take these trips, at first with my dad, and then afterwards when we realized it just wasn't going to work with my dad alone, just to get away from the constant caretaking of a sick husband, and for me, I don't know, the grief, the trauma, the lack of a life, I guess. So that's kind of how we rolled. So in July, we finally got a date, and about May, I think it was sometime in May, I heard from one of the investigators that the DA is ready to meet with us, and could we pick a date? So this was another difficult thing because we had to make sure my dad could be there, my mom could be there, I could be there, and at that point I had that temporary job over the summer, and my lawyer could be there, and it was just getting all the and the DA's schedule. So getting all the schedules together was not the easiest thing in the world. And so our first meeting was, gosh, I want to say July 2nd, but that's not right. I think it was in the middle of July. And I was so annoyed. Like, I've said before, when I'm faced with these situations, when I was in court, when I was in depositions, when I'm meeting the DA, even to this day when I meet the DA, I cannot hide my anger. There's nothing but anger. I can't be the grieving mother. I'd love to be the grieving mother, but that's A, a little manipulative, and B, not who I am in these situations. And these, like, I still, when I walk in that courthouse now, and I walk into the sheriff's office up there, and I want to throw up every single time. Like, I am just get very nervous. I get very angry. They're not happy places for me. So we have a meeting with the DA, and I've been in that room many, many times since, but I'm telling you, my memory of it is so skewed. To me, like, being there at this long conference table, I felt like the lights are on. I know the fluorescent lights are on. I felt like they were dark, like it was dark, and there was just like a spotlight on the DA. I mean, this is like crazy, but this is how I remember things. And or it was dark over where my mom and I were sitting, and I moved around a bit because the chairs were uncomfortable. And I was still at that stage where sitting for long periods of time was very painful to me. And like, it was just it was crazy. So it was the two investigators on our case. Well, it turned out there were more than, like, there were quite a few people that participated in our case, but the two main people were there. My lawyer, the DA, the victim witness coordinator, one of them, and my mom and my dad and myself. So I was on our side of the table was my lawyer, me, my dad, my mom, I believe is how it went. And we had told my dad not to say anything because at this point in his recovery, his brain injury caused a lot of impulse problems, and there were things we knew he would say that would not have been good for us. It's not that we didn't want him to speak about his grief or what he wanted to see happen, but I recall the sheriff's office a lot to get whatever information I could. So there was information that I knew already that I maybe shared with my parents, I'm not sure, but there was definitely information I had going into the meeting that I was also given at the meeting, so I was really kind of annoyed. But I didn't want the DA to know. I don't know. I guess I don't think that was a conscious thought, but I kind of, my feeling at that time was the DA was more of an antagonistic figure in this story for some reason. And I think that was because I got the sense that he wasn't, my lawyer and I talked about this a lot. We got the sense that he wasn't interested in charging the case. And I even came to that meeting with, I came prepared. So let me back up for a minute. Before that meeting at the courthouse, we went to, and I probably spoke about this already, but we went to the firehouse, the fire station in Beaver Dam, and because that was the first time, so that was where I could meet as many first responders who were there as possible, and it was a big group. We were in their training room, and it was a big group of men, and it was the first time for me that I got to hear exactly what they did to extricate both myself and Alana out of the car. And I know I've talked about this before, the thought that, I'm getting names confused. So I won't say name. The gentleman who was in charge of pulling Alana out of the car felt bad for not being able to follow like protocol with I guess spinal injuries or whatever Alana was presenting with, and also apologized to me for leaving me, I guess, on the ground for as long as they did. And this is all, you know, anybody who's studied how trauma affects our brain. I know I was on the ground, I guess. Like, I have no memory of this. I've heard it on the dash cam. I know I was on the ground for a while. I know the cops were talking to me. I remember that. But I also remember in my brain the time between being pulled from the car, which took a lot longer than my brain remembers it, and being loaded in the helicopter, to me went by like this. Like the shock, my body was totally protecting me. But it's funny that he apologized to me because I'm sure I was in a lot of pain, but I was still in shock. So thankfully I wasn't feeling it at that time. And it was so good to me to sort of put the pieces together on how we got out of the car and to know that. And it was hard for me because I know how bad everyone felt for not being able to save Alon. And we brought pictures of him, and just so they knew, like, this was the life. Like, this isn't, sadly, this isn't what you got to see. You got to see this poor kid. I think at that point, his lungs were damaged from the crash. They had to work on that. He was definitely presenting with a brain injury. So I know that was hard for them. And like for me, it was a good time for me to be able to thank them because it was Mike, the gentleman, this I'll remember, because I remember giving him a hug that day too, is that he was the one who announced that he found Alon's pulse when he came up to the car. And like that saved me. That allowed me to go to a safe space while all this was happening. I think if not for hearing that, I don't know what kind of shape I would have been in when they loaded me up in the chopper. So we did that in the morning, had lunch. I know I've said this all before, so any of you who are my loyal listeners, sorry. Then we had lunch at this diner that I've now eaten at twice and won't eat at again. And then we went to the sheriff's office, and the DA was running, the courthouse, and the DA was running late. And so So the first thing that happened, it was all, I think the DA and the cops had been in conference together, so they all walked in at the same time. So for a while it was me and my lawyer and the victim witness coordinator and my mom and my dad, and just talking about along. We brought pictures there as well, but I also I ended up emailing them later, but I brought cases that would support the DA moving forward with prosecution. Other cases from the state of Wisconsin where the manner of collision was similar to mine and the injuries were similar, or the homicide, other reckless, homicide, different homicide cases. So I guess the DA pulls our lawyer in to talk with him and the cops, and I still don't know fully what happened in that meeting, but I think he wanted to gauge on how we felt. The other family involved in the crash didn't care what happened. I was wanting the man who killed my child to go to jail. So I was, or prison is what I really wanted. And so I was all gung-ho for that. And so I'm sitting there, the criminal complaint is sitting right on the table in front of me. I can clearly see this. And the DA is not referencing it. He won't let me see it. He was still arguing that there was no case. And he let one of the investigators, he asked him to explain a couple things that I already knew. Like, I already knew he wasn't using his cell phone when he hit us, and just little things that I sort of already had gathered, and other things that I didn't know, but nothing that helped me whatsoever. So nothing to put any sort of answers to my questions. So my mom had said, I don't think we'll ever know why. And one of the investigators said, no, we're going to tell you why. We just can't tell you right now. So at the end of that meeting, like, my mom was slamming on the table, and like, she was angry because the DA wasn't seeing a semi truck going 71 miles per hour in a 45 mile per hour zone. He could not see this as a weapon. But anybody, with a reasonable mind who knew the case could, in my mind, could see that. It wasn't an accident. Knowing what I know now, it wasn't an accident. So it was not the best meeting. And it was like, it just made me angrier. Like, I go up there, I'm showing my parents where the road, not where, but the road where it happened. I'm showing my parents stuff that Alon and I did the last day he was alive. And we don't even get any sort of progress in my mind. So I committed to sending the DA the cases that I had brought with me that I didn't speak about, because I just couldn't understand his reluctance to move forward with the case. So basically, that meeting was the start of my fight to do everything I could to get my case prosecuted. And it was the start of my never-ending attempt to show gratitude to the members of the crash team in Dodge County. So that day I brought them treats that I made, and it never ended. So, and I'll get more into that in the future. But yeah, so that was my start of my fight for criminal prosecution of Alon's killer. So see, even with notes, I'm a little bit random. Sorry for that. Thanks for watching.